January 7th, Public Works and Planning Committee meeting. First of all, we'll have a roll call.
Commissioner Cush? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Here.
Commissioner James? Commissioner Dodd?
Here.
Commissioner Boyd?
Here.
Chairman Johnson?
Here.
Thank y'all.
Have the reading of the minutes and approval of the minutes. Vice Chair Phil Dodd.
Thank you, Chairman. I read the minutes and make a motion for their approval.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No public comments? Planning and Engineering Director Doug DeMossi's report.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Hope everybody's doing well. Everybody had a happy and safe holiday. We just have a couple of items for your consideration tonight. The first is our available lot inventory. You'll see that on your iPads. That's the total available lots as of December of, well, I guess last year at this point, 2024. You'll see the total available lots is 988. That's up about 70 or lots or so from 9/11 this time last year, or last month, excuse me. So we did have a couple larger subdivision sections get recorded, and typically in December, this time of year, you don't see as much building permit activity, so that wasn't overly surprising, but you can see how that compared to the same time in 2023, up about 60 or 70 lots or so. There's no questions on that. I will go into our rezoning report. We only have one item for your consideration at next week's Board of Commissioners meeting. This is for, oh, I'm sorry, it looks like I got a little typo on there. I'll make sure that gets fixed. I think Mark Baker is his name. Located at 1248 Twin Oak Drive. The property is currently zoned medium-density residential, and they are looking to do a commercial general zoning on the property. The letter that he's provided, which is within the staff report, it's attached to your iPads, states that the applicant's plans to store excess equipment, materials, vehicles on the property while they're not out working on projects. The applicant's employees are going to be the only ones accessing the site, as it's not going to be a public-facing type facility. Future plans include repairing the existing shop on the property to protect small tools, materials, and whatnot from inclement weather. Again, I'll refer you to the letter for additional details. This actually came as a result of someone, one of the building code inspectors out and about, kind of saw what was going on the property. Property currently isn't zoned for commercial purposes, but he had started doing some work on the property. He believed that when he purchased the property earlier back in 2024 that it had been or was already zoned commercially. We did some research on the property. We didn't find any zoning files on it, and it looks like that the property had always been zoned residentially. However, some older aerial photography from 1995 showed what appeared to be a shop on the property, along with materials and vehicles being stored. The property was also assessed commercially in the county assessor's office and had been zoned or used that way and taxed that way since 2002, where it was labeled as Jerry's Auto Repair. It just hadn't been in operation for quite some time. Access and everything will continue to be on Twin Oak Drive. Really, he just wants to improve the property based on what it is. So we had our public hearing, and we did have one person speak during that hearing about asking about property values and adding a privacy fence. We did explain that the property will need to comply with county screening, buffering requirements and whatnot, which would include a landscape plan or a combination of those kind of things, privacy and landscaping. There weren't any other concerns expressed during the public hearing, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Did anyone come to the meeting and speak against or for it?
There was one person that spoke. They just really had some concerns about some property value questions and then what kind of screening and buffering would be required. After we answered the questions, it was a lady, as I remember. She didn't have any other comments or anything. And that was the only person that spoke. Commissioner Piercy, I believe, was at the meeting as well to speak. Yeah.
Any other questions?
That's all I have.
Have a motion and a second to approve the report. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Actually, Doug, if I may, a question. I just want to, could you run me down the timeline for Plan Rutherford?
Yes, as of right now, we are, the Planning Commission, I should say, not just we, but the Planning Commission is going to be having a work session on that after their Planning Commission meeting on the 27th of this month. That's right after our regular meeting. That's a 9 a.m. meeting. This is not for any approval or anything. This is not advertised as a public hearing. It's really a work session with the Planning Commission. Following that work session, we'll talk more about timelines moving forward as far as actual public hearings. Any public hearings we have for actual adoption have to be advertised at least 30 days prior. So as of right now, we haven't scheduled any public hearings.
And
January 27th. Yeah, well, it'll probably either there or in here, one or the other. I think we're just doing it in here, but 27th. Yeah, and it's now that the regular meeting's at 9 in the morning, so it's going to follow the regular meeting. So I don't know exactly what time that would be. Usually our morning meetings, depending on what kind of agenda load we have, can be anywhere from 9 to 10-ish. Just depends.
and then when you get, that's when you should get your schedule, rough schedule, because correct me, I'm just trying to make sure I have it, the holidays kind of reset my mind on it. With 3 months of the public meetings for it, and then before it comes to the commission?
There's not you have to have at least one public hearing before the Planning Commission, before they vote on it, and then one public hearing before the County Commission. There's not a set number of public hearings you have to have, but any public hearings you have specifically for that purpose have to be advertised 30 days in advance. So the work session is not a public hearing. Now, we did advertise in our normal advertising that we would have a work session on it, but it's not a public hearing, and we're not taking a vote on it. But any vote for adoption has to be preceded by a legal notice of 30 days.
That's what I need. I appreciate it.
Mr. Phillips.
Doug, I hesitate to ask this, but a couple of years ago, there was a development that started out on the border of the city of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County that had some debate at that time. It eventually was approved, and the construction has started, and we've learned, and mostly neighbors have learned and started calling commissioners about that development being somewhat of a commercial development as far as rental homes, and instead of people owning those homes and living there. Is there somehow, some way that we as a planning commission missed the use of that development and how that development really should be handled as it relates to property taxes? Should it be more zoned for some type of like an apartment complex or something like that? Is there a way that we as a planning commission would actually know what that development is going to be like, instead of me as a planning commissioner thought it would be a residential development where people would own those homes, and come to find out that it will not be? Is there some comment that you can make on that, or
Well, yes,
especially
sir.
as far as taxes and commercial development and that type of thing?
As far as the taxation of it, that's probably a little over my pay grade, so I don't want to really delve into what my personal opinions might be on that, so we'll just leave it at that. But as far as the zoning of the property, that project, I know which one you're referring to, came through the Planning Commission and County Commission back in 2021, as I recall. That was really before we were starting to see kind of this trend. Of course, that we're coming out of the pandemic at that point. Before we were starting to see this trend of these rental-type communities, I looked at that pattern book. There really wasn't any reference in there, and I don't recall there being much discussion at either the Planning Commission or the Board of Commissioners regarding the ownership of that. So there's nothing in there that's prohibiting what they're doing. Now, moving forward, I will say that is a planned development. Moving forward, if we ever see any other residential planned developments, I think there may be an opportunity. And we've seen this with some of the the more recent ones, although we haven't seen any lately, where there'll be something put in there about these are going to be for ownership or fee simple ownership or something like that. They'll put a statement in there. I know there's some other jurisdictions that have put some verbiage into there or have required some verbiage in their pattern books saying that, you know, a certain entity or person cannot own more than, I don't know, say 5, 10 of these units or something like that for rental purposes. I don't know how that's going to be something that can be enforced, to be honest with you, but I have seen that in some other jurisdictions. But the whole discussion really, if it was rental versus homeownership, never really came up. So I think we were a little surprised as well when it came up, but there's nothing prohibiting it in the pattern book.
I understand that, and I'm not blaming anyone, but I know some of us commissioners have received numerous telephone calls.
And we have to at our office.
That relates to that, and people are upset that it's not homeowners that'll be living there. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if there's a way that we can make sure that the Planning Commission knows, and ultimately this committee and/or the full county commission knows exactly what that development is for. It's to me, it's like an apartment complex, and that's how it should be approached as it comes to the approval of that process. So I'm not 100% sure what we do, but to me, it's really not homeowners, and it's more of a commercial development that one owner is going to own all of those homes and rent those homes, and it should be taxed, in my mind, a different way than me as a private homeowner resident. So I'm just wondering if what the next step may need to be. Probably talk to our county attorney and our property tax assessor and see where we go from there.
That'd probably be advisable, yes, sir.
We will do that. Thank you.
Mr. P.
Well, to address the same thing, this is in my district, and I have got numerous calls on it. And of course, I was caught by surprise that they were rental, just like the rest of the Planning Commission was. So I do want to state too, I would like for this to be part of disclosure in the future on anything that planning is looking at, so we're not caught by surprise. Now, I have thought, and I think it's one thing we need to bring up to our legislators this time when we meet, and I think we meet on, what, the 21st, somewhere in there. I think there's a meeting with the legislators.
It was canceled.
Okay, well, I hadn't heard that yet. But at any rate, I think we need to bring this up to our legislators and let them help us. Now, I've talked to the property assessor, and it kind of gets back to the County Powers Act. You ever heard of that before? Anyway, the municipalities have the right to tax differently where the county doesn't. And, you know, maybe that's some way it could be addressed. If you tax them like an apartment, there's problems with that. If you tax, just say, hey, any rental like this across the board is commercial. You heard a lot of mom and pops that may have one house that, you know, they're dependent on that for rental, for retirement. And of course, none of us want to, you know, hurt a situation like that. But there's some point where, you know, whether it's 5 houses or 10 or 100 like these, somewhere in there it becomes a commercial business in my mind, and I think it's something we need to address.
Thank you, Doug. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, and I'll keep him on the spot if I may, Chairman. Okay. Do the subdivision regulations have any language about single-family rental houses?
No, sir, they don't. Zoning doesn't either.
I think we're done, Doug. Thank you. For sure this time. Building Codes Report, Director Tanya Bell, sorry.
And Commissioners, and Happy New Year. And if I may, can I touch on that subject that you guys were just talking about? In the last couple of years, we've started to see an uptick in zoning, where it comes to zoning enforcement from rental properties, open storage, dilapidated structures, noise, et cetera. And a lot of times we have to use the tax records, the owner information from the tax records to enforce any kind of abatement or anything with it. So we're starting to see more and more out-of-state businesses that we can't get a hold of anybody. It's a P.O. box, or it's a 1-800 number, or it's someone that we can't get a hold of to help us out. And a lot of times we don't know who the tenant is, because if we visit the house, we don't necessarily talk to the tenant. We just go to the house to verify that the violation exists, and then we proceed to document and send documentation to the owner of the property. Many, many times we don't know who that is, and we never get a response. We can't get anybody to call us back or anything like that. Just thought I'd throw that out there. We're not seeing many of them, but they're starting to become more and more common, more so than ever before. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Do you think if you sent them a fine and a bill, they might pay attention?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the authority to do that. That can only come from the courts. So the only time that a fine can be levied is by a judge.
Well, that's like the NORS ordinance we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
And some other problems we've had.
Yeah.
I'm not through digging on, but
Yeah. All right, on to my report for December. So in December, we issued a total of 272 permits. 37 of those were single-family dwellings, which is exactly the same as November, for a total revenue of $141,608.20 cents. We drove 1,548, excuse me, oh, I need new glasses, 1,648 miles. No, we didn't. We did 1,648 building inspections and drove 8,700 miles and 112 zoning enforcement inspections. And if there's no questions with that, I will move on to school facilities tax and development tax. School facilities tax in the month of December, we collected $22,311. And we did not collect any development tax. That concludes my report.
We have a motion and a second to approve the report. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? P.
do you think that may wind up the development tax since you didn't have any reported, or we still have some trickling in?
We've still got, I think, between Doug and Misty in my office, they do a report at the end of the month of how many lots are left out there where the development tax still applies to. Do you happen to remember off the top of your head what that is? 300-ish? 300-ish? And they trickle in. They're very few and far between. They're just scattered all over the county.
Welcome back.
If you, one of the items I put on the planning and engineering report is a breakdown of the lots that are development tax versus the lots that are schools facilities tax. I don't know the exact number.
All right, good night. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Highway Department report. Greg Brooks. I'm sorry, Harry Hickerson.
Not near as tall as Greg, but I'll do it. All right, I'm bringing for you two budget amendments that were took to the road board yesterday morning. They both passed unanimously, and I think the first one you have on your iPad is for a budget amendment of $675,000 for increase into our bridge construction line item from our fund ending balance. This is to do bridge widening on Rooker Road, which is out off of 231 South. Do we want to do these amendments together or one at a time?
Probably do them.
One at a time? Okay. Do I have any questions on this one?
If I may, and I don't recall seeing many bridge widening projects through the road department? Did this one particularly bad? It's not a slab bridge, I don't think. It's
No,
not-
no, sir, this is just a standard bridge that is inspected, so it's over 20 foot. What we're doing is, we have looked, we being mainly Greg, and some of the other guys have gone out, and Rooker Road is a main thoroughfare to get back to the Plainview schools. It's another way back there. And there's nothing wrong with this bridge. It's 2-lane, it's all passable. But if we could we're going to widen on one side, so we're going to widen on the outlet side and allow a little more give as you're crossing the bridge. When you get school buses meeting teenage drivers, even older drivers like me, it looks really narrow when you're meeting a school bus or something. So really, this is just an improvement on our part, and this is no state aid money whatsoever. This is our money from our funding imbalance to just do this. And like I said, we are widening on one side of the bridge. It's not a complete, we're kind of shift the traffic a little, but it's all going to be on the outlet side of the bridge.
Mary, if I could ask, is this something that we're going to bid out, or is it something that the highway department is going to do?
This actually has already been bid. We let a bid April or May. We did Rooker Road widening and Burke's Holler superstructure improvement. Last month, you approved our budget amendment for the Burke's Hollow, and this has come up that we've got all the permits and everything like they're supposed to be finally. And so now that we have that, we have got the okay, the board approved to let's keep going with it, and so that's where we're at. It has already been bid and approved. Yes, sir.
Just for my information, how would you even know that it needed to be done? Did somebody ask or bring it to your attention, or what?
Well, we rely on folks to call in and say, this is narrow, my kids are complaining because they're meeting these school buses or what. But every 2 years, the state, TDOT, has bridge inspectors that go out to any structure in any county, city, because we see the report that has even Murfreesboro and Smyrna and Laverne and Eagleville on it, every 2 years and inspects these bridges. And we get poor, fair, good. I think that's the 3 we get. So it's kind of a combination. And we rely, maybe our bush hogger was down through there and the long arm said, you know what? Looks like it might be washing. It's just on my part. So we rely on our people and the public, and then these inspections every 2 years to kind of say, and then, like I said, it is in an area that is growing with the subdivisions, and then leading out to the schools, potential of more than the one single school at Plainview. Sir.
Mr. James.
You said it gave a rating, the state gave a rating. What was the rating on this one? Because you said earlier, you said it was, it's good.
Good.
It's
good. We have a good, better, best, I guess. And I don't have that bridge report in front of me, and I apologize for this. But this rating is good, so it is, and it has been. We've got some that are poor because they needed this superstructure top to be pulled off and re-poured. So we do get things like this, but this one is rated good. It's for the traveling public. We are wanting to widen this, so I don't want to say make it safer, but it would make it safer. It's safe now. It's just for the motoring public of meeting school buses and big trucks, and for me, being the comfort of when I meet them, I know I got a little bit more to scoot over here.
And how does this line up in the call to action priorities? Like you said, we had some that are poor. So, I mean, I'm just concerned that we might be putting one that is in good shape just to give a small margin for the folks that...
Oh, no. To get to the bridges that really have to be repaired, on the bridge report, there are poor bridges and fair bridges and good bridges. Well, if you've got anything on the poor or failure, those have to, per the state, have to be tended to and approved or closed prior to us being able to get any state money to do anything else. So Burke's Holler is one that is getting between the fair and poor. So we're improving that on our dime, not the state dime, so that if something comes up, that we have a bigger bridge that needs attention, we're able to do that with the state money, since we are using some of this out of funding imbalance. And I think last month it was not quite 400,000. I think you approved for the Burke's Holler, and then this one is the 675. So
Okay, so it's not that we have others that are priority, we're in good shape all around. You use as an example. Okay, that's what threw me
Right.
off. The example, I took it as a literal, we have poor bridges out there.
oh, no,
and we're in good shape.
No, we have 100 and, I think 87, I just filled out that report for Michael. I think we've got 187 plus or minus 20 foot or larger. That is not counting any of the slab, single lane bridges that we have. But, no.
Okay,
That's
that's
just
great.
for an
I
example.
took your example literal, and
No,
that's
no,
what
no,
threw me
no,
off,
no,
so we're good.
I
We're good.
apologize. No, that was just for example, for sure.
Other questions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amendment for Rooker Road and Long Creek. Is that correct? All in favor? I'm sorry, roll call.
Commissioner Kush? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P? Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Just for your information, the last bridge inspection was in '22, so they are working on our '24 list. And it usually takes several months after inspections to get it all together and sent to us. So we're back in the cycle of a new inspection. Okay. Our next budget amendment is, that was approved unanimously yesterday, was to do the 4.25% salary increase that you, the county commissioners, approved back in December. That you have the budget amendment with all the line items, but in a nutshell, for the Public Works Department side of this, which is the $65,000 account for us, there's $4,910 decrease their funding imbalance with an increase to their salary and benefits. The other amount is $4,005, which is decreased from the county's highway department's funding imbalance, which is our $61,000, $62,000, and $63,100 salary and benefits. And it's, your budget amendment has every line item exactly. Makes the grand total $47,915.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Call, please.
Commissioner Kush? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Mary, before you leave, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, in case you don't know, Mary Hickerson is a long-term employee of the county, and there's very few people that exceed her knowledge as to what goes on in that department, but there's nobody that exceeds her knowledge of benefits for the county, and she's a long-term member of the county insurance. We call it risk management now, the county insurance committee, and is vice chairman of that committee. And we need to salute employees like Mary as often as we get the chance to do that. And I just wanted to make sure that this committee offered you that opportunity tonight, Mary. Thank you for the job that you do, and thank you for your service to Rutherford County. Thank you, dear.
I appreciate it very much so. Thank you.
Miss Mary, I'm sorry. Do you happen to have an update on the Landfill Road It's okay if you don't. I didn't know if he,
I do know that things were opened in purchasing for the intersection at Jefferson Pike and for the
It's awarded on the 19th.
RFD. Okay.
Yeah.
So as for, our guys are working now, we took a Christmas break, not all of
Right.
us, but our guys could have some of them left on the 19th, didn't come back to the 6th, and I only had to take 3 days vacation by how our holidays fall. So we were slim pickings,
Right.
and with the weather, we were not able to get out there very much, but they are working on it every day, weather permitting. This week being so cold, Greg just says it's not fair to put the guys out there. So for this week with being cold, we're not out there, but we are out there. We have a crew of 5 men at least that are there every day working on it when we are. Yes, sir. Sorry, I can't give you any more
thank
than
you.
that.
Well, I know I was kind of putting you on the spot because
That's
you know,
okay. All right, thank
but
you.
I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have the Solid Waste and Convenience Center report. Director Wagner.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Bishop Wagner. I'm your Solid Waste Director. I'll start with the waste collection and recycling report. Rutherford County landfill accepted 49.90 tons of brush for a revenue of $1,503 in the month of December. We managed 576 tires for a revenue of $1,252. December's total revenue from landfill scale operations was $2,755. Rutherford County Solid Waste disposed of 3,420.49 tons of waste from all sources in the month of December. 2,513.13 came from our convenience centers, and 457.57 tons came from our schools. We recycled and diverted 449.79 tons from all sources, and that's a residential diversion rate of 13.15 for the month of December. I also have a little review of our activities over the 2024 year. In Rutherford County, the landfill accepted 1,522.72 tons of brush. We managed 28,845.29 tons of waste from our convenience centers and 6,224.38 tons of waste from our schools. 4,357.81 tons were recycled, and this is a total of 39,427.48 tons of waste that was managed, and this represents an annual residential diversion rate of 11.05. That's up about 2.5 points from the previous year. As you know, this is our first full year since we've added our telematics service, which is called Motive. And Motive's purpose, just as a reminder, was to help us in a couple different ways. It was one, to identify efficiencies in our routing. It was also a huge safety deal. It has cameras, it has GPS location, it has some communication to us with the state of the vehicle, so we know when to do maintenance and repair issues. So we've been tracking that all year as we do, and I have compiled a little bit of data on that. As you know, Rutherford County Solid Waste contracted for the telematics service with Motive in late of 2023. We are proud to report an overall trend in driver safety, evidenced by how often telematics hardware and software record problems driving behaviors. Safety events include speeding, rolling stops, not wearing seat belts, use of mobile devices, distraction, close following, hard braking, improper lane changes, and collision warnings. And that statement is mentioned because there's a list. If you see this in your SharePoint, this graph here, that's each one of those numbers on the bottom represents a month of the year, starting in January into December, and the overall trend is down. If you take a look at the trend line and that R squared there, with a peak of 8.05 in December. That is typical. Have a peak when you have a bunch of new drivers, and we hired 4 new drivers all at once, so you get some of those things initially. Each one of those incidents is 1 per every 1,000 miles driven. And something that's interesting, maybe you might be interested to know that, for example, in the month of December, Rutherford County solid waste trucks traveled 26,089 miles to pick up waste for that month. So we are, and that's, you know, all our front loads and our roll-off trucks traveled that much during a month. In those, we had 8.05 instances in all of those miles. And those instances being following too close, hard braking, cell phone. You look at your cell phone, it gets you. You are going over the speed limit, it gets you. So any of those things, they are ranked. Each one, this is a blanket of all of the possible events. They are ranked by severity, and if they fall in the range of, for example, cell phone use, not wearing seat belts, speeding, those warrant a conversation with the driver and a coaching session. And if those behaviors don't change, then they can get escalated into corrective action. And it's been initially it was everybody was apprehensive, but I really feel like we've got the support of the driving staff. They understand it is there to protect them and keep them safe when we do have people in what I just read was one of the most dangerous places to drive in the United States.
Have any questions?
You had 6,224 tons from the schools. Does that include Murfreesboro City schools that we pick up from?
Yes, sir. That includes all the schools from the front loads.
Bush.
Thank you, Chair. Bishop, just out of curiosity, does this information on motif or motive, whatever it's called, does this get to our insurance carrier? And by any chance, do these good marks have any ability to lower perhaps some of our insurance premiums on some of the trucks that we insure?
I can't answer all of that question. Some of that's for Ed for sure. I will say that this system is used by risk management if there's an incident, because it's evidence that the county possesses to defend or to show what actually happened in the event of an incident, and it has been forwarded onto them on a couple of occasions, and it's worked well there. I would say the most frequent, the two things that happen that would get involved, if, of course, there hasn't been an accident, I would say, I want to say all year, but don't quote me on that. It has been longer than 6 months that we've had to report. But occasionally we'll get a call of somebody says that there was something that came off the back of a truck or something like that, and that it's caused damage to a vehicle. If that's the case, we have video, we have location so that we can verify that they were in fact in the place that they said they were in, and we have video that could show the driver's reaction or the vehicle that was around it, and we forward that stuff on to risk management to help with those instances. And of course, if there ever was any injury, accident, we have the front-facing cameras, and we have the reaction camera inside of the truck to show the driver's reaction as well.
So in its first year, do you think it's paying for itself?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd go so far as to say it's a bargain at what we get from it, from the trend, the culture trend we've had in the way that drivers are paying more attention to some of these actions and activities.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second to approve the report. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank you all. I have two just information items. One is a question that was brought before this committee regarding the Sand Hill location, Gingham Road and LaSalle Street, and our status on what we're doing with that property. I know that the school board had voted for us to take a deeper look into it, and that's what we're doing. We have sent Montrose, which is the Triad, who are the environmental engineers that deal with the landfill and do our site analysis there. They're out there to do an environmental site assessment 1 and some geotechnical analysis to find the site suitability of that property, to determine, give information to the mayor's office to determine whether or not it's going to be suitable to proceed for this project. I talked longer than I was supposed to. So we'll get that data back, and then based on some of those findings, the mayor's office will make determinations on how further to proceed with that process. Any questions about that?
Questions?
Not sure I understood what you just said. You're talking about the Laverne project of moving it from that to that excess property that's in conjunction with the school?
Yes, sir. That location there, it's at the end of LaSalle and Gingham, in that Sand Hill area. I've been working with Mike Hughes, and we've got kind of a basic footprint of what that should look like. It would look, the proposed site looks eerily similar to G Street. In fact, it's almost a copy and paste of G Street put on top of it. So we're sending Montrose out there to do a phase 1 analysis of the property, which is just to make sure that there's nothing nasty that we don't want to get into out there, and then a geotechnical to find out if the material there is suitable for us to do some kind of construction.
But we're still pursuing that school property.
Looking into it, yes, sir.
We are pursuing that property, but also the mayor's office is also looking for other property, because we don't know if this property at LaSalle and Gingham can even be built on. I mean, we're in the process of finding that out, but we need a plan B just in case, or once we get a real true guesstimate of the price of developing LaSalle and Gingham, we would have something to compare to. If we can find a piece of property in Laverne that is in total cheaper to buy and develop compared to LaSalle and Gingham, then it'd be a no-brainer to go ahead with the other property. Whether we could use the LaSalle and Gingham or not. So we've actually got a plan B, or sort of a contingency there. Any other questions?
Do you have any type of update on our transfer station?
You beat me to the punch here. Yes, the transfer station is it's meeting deadlines. I think even with the cold weather, they continue to press on with hanging the roof steel on the structure. The concrete, I would say, is right around 90% poured, maybe 85 to 90% poured. They've got the apron, the thick concretes are all poured and have met their breaking points. The concrete around the majority of the site has been completed. They are building up the ramps at the scale house in anticipation of the delivery of the scales. There, are still some questions in the air about what the suitability will be for us to be able to pour for that, to get that on time, but the scales are on schedule and they're done and ready to be delivered when they need to be. The crew that is the Brooks Excavating that's doing the boring, that's subcontracted to do the boring underneath the river. They have done the water line and they're working on the sewer line now. So as far as have made it all the way across the river, the connections and tie-ins and things on the Murfreesboro side of the river have not been completed yet, but that would happen in the end part of their phase as we're going there. But those look good. Greg Brooks and his crew have been out and done some widening on the Rutherford County landfill property where they could. There were some poles that needed to be moved, but the crews are out there. The high voltage has been moved, and the low voltage still needs to be removed from the old poles, and the old poles pulled up so they can finish the couple. I think there's 3 pole areas that need to be taken out, and then the binder and stuff put around that. But the road widening and straightening on that part is looking good. it's just a matter of struggling with the winter weather on the project, but from all signs that I see, it looks like we're on or ahead of schedule in almost every area. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I had a couple things for Bishop. First, just wanted to wish, kind of more of, I guess, a side note before I get into the business, want to wish your employees a speedy recovery and return to work. I know he's missed there. Second, right after Christmas, I went out to my center out in Elmville and took my trash, and it does appear that Rutherford County had a very good Christmas because we have a lot of trash to come out. But I wanted to commend Bishop and Mr. Clark with our Emergency Management Services, and then even Murfreesboro Murfreesboro Police Department for letting him borrow the traffic cones. They created an S-turn in the parking lot at the convenience center to help keep traffic off the main road, and in doing so, it really helped with the flow, the overflow, and we had very little wait times throughout this whole season. Knock on wood, I hope I'm not jinxing it. So I wanted to commend all the different departments for getting together and you kind of taking the charge and listening for the last couple of seasons, saying, hey, we're getting backed up, and actually taking charge and getting that under control. I can't speak for other centers, but on that one, I even wanted to see more firsthand that I went out the next morning and opened up the centers, and I want to say worked it, but I really stood and observed the workers do their job and watched for several hours and kept flowing really well with a really reasonable. Watched the change out of one of the roll-offs. I was able to really see some of the things. But I did notice something, because a few months back, I worked at the Sand Hill location for a few hours, closed that one down, and this time I came to this one, my direct one, to open it and really see during the busy and the cold and the wet, and saw that these convenience employees for the convenience centers are out there exposed to the weather, the heat, the cold, exposed primarily to the wet. And anybody who's had to go spend 6, 8, 10 hours a day outside, and within the first half hour, your socks and underwear are soaking wet, and you have to finish the shift, it really changes the dynamic to the thing. So I'm trying to find a way, and I've been talking to Bishop about this briefly this last week and a half. We looked at the numbers with 55 total employees at those centers, almost split equally, 29 full-time, 26 part-time. Looking at the idea of getting them a reflective rain gear, top, bottom, boots, gloves, reflective rain gear to be able to perform their task while they're standing out there in the elements and so forth. And I'd like to actually make this proposal, because it comes out to be roughly, with a little margin, about $30,000. I'd like to see if we could send this to budget to pull from unassigned funds $30,000 as a one-time source to get the employees a uniform, essentially, for wet weather gear to perform their task out there and be somewhat protected from the elements that we ask them to stand in all day. So I wanted to thank you for the process that you've done, but it did open my eyes to some of those things, and I'd like to go ahead and proceed with making a motion that we send a request $30,000 as for one-time funding for wet weather gear for the convenience center employees, and we send that to budget.
I have just one question. On your budgeting for those uniforms, did you review the state contract that we can, because we can buy those off of the state contract. I don't know what those are priced at individually, but is that where you got your number to?
I had Bishop look at me for a rough number of what they would cost for the full gear setup per employee, and it comes out to be just shy of $30,000. And I moved it up just a little bit to have a couple, because we might have some sizing differentiations, or to have that one or two off extras because he still has some open vacancies to fill. And that way, and the intent with this motion here and now is if we can get it to budget and get it to the full commission for a vote, that we potentially could have him have these ordered and in these employees' hands before, say, Valentine's Day, so that they get most of this season and not have to wait for the summer's budget to come in to say whether they can get it for next year. They can actually get something to cover them now. We can start protecting them against, you know, the cold and the wet.
Is this basically the same top and bottom that Sheriff's Department group?
That's what I would envision as something that would be similar that the SO would use, or the traffic control folks that work for the school system.
I'm surprised they would take that long to get.
If I may, we have a motion,
Yeah.
and I was waiting on a second before discussion.
I'll give him a second for discussion.
We have a motion and a second to approve or send the budget to approve $30,000 for convenience center employees' wet weather gear.
Mr. Chairman, I commend Commissioner James for bringing this up. I think the proper process, instead of asking for a specific amount, the proper motion to make sure that this is handled in the right way would be to ask the department to look at what procedure might be best for his employees and bring the recommendation back. We had a motion made a couple of months ago that related to salaries at public safety, and it was a specific motion that failed. If it would have been more of a generic motion to send it on without a specific recommendation, I think it would have passed. And I think this may be the same thing, Commissioner James, to allow the department to explore your recommendation and maybe see if they can come up with some others as well. Instead of it being specific at this time, I'd like to hear what other options, just me as a commissioner, I'd like to hear what other options. Maybe it may be more expensive or it could be less expensive, but if we were to go with this specific $30,000 one, I'm just not sure that all the options have been pursued, and I'm not sure that it doesn't need to go through some type of purchasing process or something else like that. So I agree with the concept 100%. I've got a little bit of an issue with the motion saying that we're going to spend $30,000 without the department having the proper input and making the recommendation before this committee. Just a thought.
Mr. P.
Well, I second this for discussion, and Commissioner James had mentioned to me that, you know, about his idea. I think Chairman Phillips is right. You know, this would probably have to be bid. The other thing, and the reason I wanted to bring up for discussion as far as, you know, budget committee finding the money, first thing I'm going to ask you is, I'm going to look at your budget and see if it's in there. If it's in there, it's where it's going to come from as far as my vote goes. But that's part of it too. But I agree with the chairman over here. Is I think that this would have to be bid regardless, instead of just going out and buying it. I assume the sheriff's department, and I know our fire departments and EMS, they all have to go when they're getting uniforms, that type of stuff. It has to be bid. And there may be one of those out there that you can ride on, you know, pick up something off the sheriff's department. But I think we need to know that. So if you bring that to budget Thursday, be ready to have those answers.
And I also think that my 2 cents in here on this, that this definitely would have to go through the mayor's office for his blessing prior to us making a move. I think that it's a good idea as well, a good intention, but I think that because it would potentially have tens of thousands of dollars to have to go before purchasing it, would be something that the mayor would definitely have to sign off on.
Once again, I think that the idea and the concept is something that most commissioners would fully support, but in my mind, the proper motion would be that this needs attention, and we'd like for you, as the department head, to come back with some recommendations for us to take a look at. Does that make sense, Commissioner James?
It does. And with that, I'll move to withdraw my motion then.
And I'll withdraw the second on that. And I'd like to say, too, that doesn't exclude you being able to make a motion that we forward this to budget to make them aware of it, if you want to do that, or I can, we may have time to get it on the agenda. I don't know. I'll have to check with Michael to see. We're pretty close to our deadline, but we could stick it under other business, at least bring it up if you want to come and speak. Right.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for Commissioner James to be allowed to go to budget, or to be on the budget agenda to speak for information only.
Nope.
On this
For
issue.
this idea, for this concept to be presented to budget, to begin to aware for looking for the funding mechanism as needed.
Everyone understand the motion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Thank you. And one last thing while I've got you hostage. You can blame Commissioner James for this. I wanted to give a shout out to the Rutherford County Solid Waste staff for their actions and activities that they did since the 27th of December until today, and probably next week as well, as we're looking at some inclement weather and some potential for some log jams in the waste management deal. And I also would like to thank Chris Clark, the Sheriff's Department, and the City of Murfreesboro for their help. And I'd like to make a plea to anyone that is in the Almaville community. If you got home and you found a cone underneath your car, if you would please return it either to me or to the City of Murfreesboro. We'd love to have our cone back. It happens every year. But no, these folks, there were no accidents, injuries, or incidents during this holiday season. And since I've been here in 2021, when I started, this is the first year we have not had an accident to report. So I couldn't be more pleased. Thank you.
Mr. Piercy.
Let's go back to this rain gear situation. We're going to furnish it for the attendants. Wouldn't you feel good about furnishing it for the truck drivers also?
So we do supply PPE for the drivers for as far as the uniforms and the boots. That's part of their, now the rain gear, the jacket, that's something that they don't have in their current repertoire. I think it is something that should probably be looked into so that we have kind of an equality out there. But I think I do agree with Commissioner James in the fact that there is a deficit here, particularly in the attendants, because they have no choice but to be exposed to the weather as they come out. But that being said, the drivers don't have a choice either when they're having to go out there and open a box up too. So I do have budgeted funds for uniforms and for PPE for the drivers and for the full-time employees, but that does not include rain gear. So I think that that this is definitely something that needs to be addressed and looked at. If it can't get done in this budget year, it will be addressed and added into my request for the following budget year.
I'd like to say that my normal place to recycle is G Street in Smyrna. As most of you know, I've had 2 back surgeries this year, and there's days that it's all I could do to get in and out of my truck. As soon as I go into the center, and this is not just happening for me, I've observed it before I was down, men and women at the convenience centers, and I go to Sand Hills some too, and they all do it. They're not obligated to go and get your trash out for you, but before I can get out of my truck, they've got my truck lid up in the back, and they're already on the ball and helping me out, and I really appreciate that. And like I say, they're not doing it just because the commissioner comes in, because I don't go in there in my with a commissioner jacket or anything most of the time, but they're just good people. So that being said, people that go to the convenience centers, and please do go to the convenience centers and recycle all you can. But you people that are able to do your own trash, don't sit in a truck or car and expect this to be done. But it's some comfort to know that if you go over there and you're having a problem, these men and women do help you. And I just want to just give a shout out to them. They've really helped me, and I see them helping people all the time. So just thank you. And thank you, Bishop, for the good people that you hire.
They're the ones that keep me in business. I don't have anything to do with that, but I will pass it on to them, Chairman. And yes, since you brought that recycling up, and I've got you hostage still, I'm going to mention something that I noticed when I was doing the annual reports. And I'm going to start doing this, I think. Identifying the centers in a county that participated in recycling and diversion activities the most. So, top 3, right off the list here, we have Walter Hill, which, of course, they're so close to the office that they have to act right? Smyrna is number 1 on the top of the list, which should be. It's got the highest volumes and a great staff there. And then it's close between 3rd and 4th, but Marshall Knob is number 3, and number 4 is Almaville. So, and all of those are over 550 tons per year at each center that we receive. So, you are witnessing the genesis of an idea here. I'm going to put a challenge out to my convenience centers, because a large part of our recycling and diversion activities happens at ground zero with those employees and their education, their communication with the public as they come in. A lot of folks, for example, I was out at Sand Hill today, and there was a gentleman came in a pickup truck, and he had a bunch of cardboard boxes, and he hadn't separated the foam out from them and all of that stuff, and he was throwing them in the trash bin, and the employee said, "Hold on, you've got a bunch of cardboard here. This can all be recycled." That moment, you could see the guy's eyes light up. He's like, "Well, I thought because it had the cardboard that it meant it had to all be thrown away." And it's like, no, you separate the stuff out. You put the cardboard in the recycling and the foam in that. And so each opportunity that the staff have to educate the public on what commodities we accept, how much benefits us in the long run. And so I'm going to work out, and I will present a challenge that I will provide to all of our 14 convenience centers to meet. Now, it wouldn't be fair to pit Smyrna against Craner Road, for example. I think that would be a little unfair, although JP would take the challenge. But we'll go by percentage of waste on that, and I'll get back with you more once I come to that. But
Well, that was going to be my suggestion, do percentage.
only way to do it. No, JP would, but I would see that 300 or 400 come out of Craner Road. I don't know how the numbers would get there, but he'd do it. But thank you all for your support and for your patience and understanding during the holiday season. It can be trying with us. I know that we all get calls.
Thank you, Bishop. Earlier today, I think all commissioners received an email for prayers for the Commissioner Phillips family. Commissioner Phillips, I don't know if you want to mention this or if you just want me to continue, but
No, just as most of you know, my wife and myself and my youngest son have been caring for Kathy's mother for several years, and her health is deteriorating slowly, but she's had an episode where her oxygen level got down to an extremely dangerous position. We took her by ambulance to the emergency room, and she's still being treated at the emergency room right now. Kathy's with her. We think it's a precautionary move and not something that's life-threatening at this time, but it's part of the aging process. She's a wonderful lady, and she's been in excellent care, and she had an episode that we couldn't help her with. So she just needed some help, and I appreciate you guys thinking of our family. She's once again in a position to where she's vulnerable, and that makes us vulnerable as a family. And as I've told you guys many, many times, there's nothing more important than family. Your commission, your job, your anything else comes second, third, fourth, and fifth place, but family comes first, and it's part of our family, and we're concerned. But we also think that this is a precautionary deal, and she may be in the hospital for several days, but till they get her oxygen level straightened out. So, but we're confident that she'll be okay. Thank you for that.
Rest assured, she's in our prayers, and your whole family is. Yes, it does. Mr. Boyd, it sure is good to have you back. Even drove himself up here tonight. I was so shocked. I'm sure I'm not the only one who've noticed, but it seems to be worse in Tennessee. If I go through other states, seems to be worse in Tennessee than most others. The litter. And Rutherford County has a litter problem. I don't know what we can do about it, but I'll be talking to people, and I hope the rest of the committee and commission is trying to stay on top of it and see if there's anything that we can improve on, whether it be the laws or whatever. I don't know if education works, because I don't see how you can educate anyone any better than just being responsible. How do you teach that? It has to come from home, I'm sure, but if there's anything this county can do, I hope we can find a solution and get something done, because it's even in Smyrna, well, all the communities, but right across from our convenience center, people are pulling up behind a bunch of bushes, and they've got a garbage pile there. It's ridiculous, and I continually call the city, and they pick it up, and people still dump. I mean, it's right there at our front door. So I'm pleading with the community, I guess. Please don't dump anything. Don't throw anything out of your car or truck when you're going down the road. Take it home. I pick up trash every day. Either I do or my wife or my neighbors, especially us because we're on a corner. We get all these convenience restaurants. You know, you just throw out the big bags where they ate their hamburgers or whatever, and even their beer bottles and all. And it's ridiculous. Take it home, people. I mean, I'm pleading with you. Just take your trash home and recycle at our convenience centers. So if there's not any other business,
Before we,
Mr. Phillips.
at our last Property Management Committee meeting, I probably jumped the gun a little bit and asked, Mr. Wagner was making a presentation on our center, as updating property management as it relates to our building program. And I asked if he could make a presentation to this committee sometime this spring as it relates to our long-term goals and the future of garbage in Rutherford County and his plans. I'd probably jump the gun, and I'd like for this committee to kind of take the lead on that, since we'll be opening up our new center to deal with garbage this spring sometime, and we'll be entering a new budget year. I'd like for the mayor's office through Bishop to give us the next, after we open up the transfer station, as to what garbage will look like in Rutherford County over the next 5 years when Republic closes, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, where are we going, and what that might look like. From a budget perspective, I think this county, this commission, needs to know where we're going and have a roadmap to get there. Just looking at some of the reports, today we're talking about all types of recycles and maybe even composting and things like that. I'd like to know what the future of garbage long-term looks like. It appears that Republic has a vision, and they may even make a presentation as to what their vision for Rutherford County looks like. And I know that Bishop has been working on that. I know he has, and I'd just like for sometime this spring, before we get into the new budget year, for Bishop and the mayor's office to present to this committee long-term what garbage should look like in Rutherford County and what we can expect over the next 20, 30 years. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, and maybe even Commissioner Dodds, as being vice chairman, could make that request to the mayor's office to make a presentation. And it doesn't have to be anytime soon. Take your time to do it, and sometime this spring, to make that presentation before this committee as to what the future of garbage, a clearer future of garbage looks like in Rutherford County. I'd like to know, and I think a lot of other people would like to know too. And I know Bishop has a vision, and I just want that vision verbalized and maybe even formalized. Once again, you guys know that Plan Rutherford garbage is part of that, and that finalized plan is up to the department, and that's what I'm kind of talking about. So, Mr. Chairman, if you could, and I'll be more than glad to go with you, and Commissioner Dodd as vice chairman, maybe go to the mayor's office and make that request. I can't put that in form of a motion, but it's a request from me if you would kind of do that, and maybe report back to the committee as to the response you get out of the mayor's office.
Consider it done. Bishop, correct me if I'm wrong, but been a while, but I got an email about a 10-year workshop, a plan and workshop that'll be in Nashville. I think it's in about a week or two, next Thursday. So, Bishop, if you'd like to speak on that.
Hello. So the Tennessee State Department of Environment and Conservation is working on what they call the 2035 Solid Waste Management Plan, and this is a statewide plan. It sets recycling and diversion goals, activities, and this is the first state round of inviting everyone together that's in the region that makes waste decisions about, what are some of the options, what are some of the obstacles, what do we want the region to look like, Middle Tennessee or Tennessee as a whole, to look like in terms of waste. So they're getting together and they're going to discuss some of the things that they've probably already been in discussion with, and then they're going to ask for input from governments and from private companies and from generators to end-of-life locations, and that happens on Thursday, and I believe it's at the Sidco Drive National. That's the reserve office there, Army Reserve office, and stuff. So I think it's at 10 o'clock. Starts at 10 o'clock, and I plan on being there. I know that there will be others that colleagues from other counties that should be there as well to represent the needs of their counties. And it's a good place to kind of get, we get so hyper-focused on what we do here in Rutherford County and how it affects us directly. But, one thing about management of waste and recycling and diversion is we're all interconnected here within Middle Tennessee. And, Middle Point landfill being the largest landfill in the state, we kind of get blinded in its shadow because it's right here next to us. But what does that mean to us and to counties around us, post-closure for that landfill, and what activities, what other things are going to be affected, and how will that positively or negatively affect us and our ability to meet our waste management goals. So hopefully that was enough of a lead into what kind of to expect in that. But this is it's a process where they have a working group that will work on this plan for quite some time and present some of their ideas. But I know that they like to match, if memory serves from when I was over there at central office, but they like to match some of the EPA goals when it comes to how much waste do they want to diverted. We've been on our annual reporting, 25% has been what we've been held to. There have been some discussions of increasing that, which I anticipate we'll hear that. And then hopefully there'll be some funding mechanisms that will become available and be announced as well to help us to achieve those goals. In particular, I think the organics management aspect of the waste stream is something that's going to be addressed.
Thank you. Any other business?
I have a question about
Mr. Piercy.
Mr. Wagner's presentation. He's going to be asked to present for our future on our trash. The minutes from the property management meeting reflects that Republic Services will be coming with their vision for the Rutherford County solid waste for the next 30 years. Will Mr. Wagner give his the same night? Will he be before or after Republic, or does anybody have any clue on that?
Don't really have a clue on that right now. Republic is in the process of working that report up. May be finished even. I've got a meeting with them Friday. See what they're going to do on that. And, of course, I'll get with Bishop, and we've already been asked to have Bishop to report to us, so I don't know when that'll be, because I was planning on doing that, and then I was asked tonight to get it done, so that's what we're going to do. As far as a date, though, I don't have that. Hopefully, we'll have Republic come at our next meeting, Public Works meeting. That answer your question?
In a roundabout way, I'd really like to hear them both the same night, That way you can weigh the odds against one against the other one if you need to. It's just a thought.
I'll discuss that with them and see what they want to do. Thank you. Any other business? Stand adjourned.